If you like what you're hearing, put your money where your media is by subscribing to independent podcasts like this one. Go to lauraflanders.org/membership. And thanks. Hi, I'm Laura Flanders, and this is The Laura Flanders Show, the TV and radio program that seeks to raise radical spirits by interviewing forward-thinking people with real models of shifting power from the worlds of arts, entrepreneurship, politics, and activism. Hi, I'm Laura Flanders, and we are here at NICL, the National Council on Independent Living Conference 2018, and I'm with
Bruce Darling. I'm the president of NICL.
We're in D.C. We'll be here for the whole show. What are some of the themes you're going to be addressing here today?
So we work on issues that impact people across their entire life. So housing, the ability to work and be employed, access to home and community-based services to live in the community. If there is something someone's interested, we have a subcommittee at NICL that's working on it, or a committee that's working on it. People with disabilities from all over the country come to this conference. So you'll see people with mobility disabilities, blind folks, deaf folks, people with non-visible disabilities. There are folks who work in centers for independent living. We all come together. This is our time of year where we learn from each other and actually mobilize resistance for action.
And I grew up with my father, a very famous person in British theater and the theater world, and he was in a wheelchair. And that was the 1960s. Things have come a long way. But we're going to talk about the challenges that we are all facing right now if we want to, in another famous phrase, remake the world anew and better. This is the Laura Flanders Show, the place where the people who say it can't be done take a back seat to the people who are doing it. Welcome.
Inalienable rights are rights that we inherently possess. They are things that are ours. The founders and the framers of our country had freedom and liberty as a value. More importantly, look to the leaders in the civil rights movement who have taken those values and have helped move our country forward so that everyone here has the right and the same opportunity to life, liberty, freedom, and the pursuit of happiness.
That's Bruce Darling, president of the National Council on Independent Living, or NICL, speaking at their conference in D.C. earlier this summer. Laura asked Bruce why the ADA, or the Americans with Disabilities Act, matters personally to him and for NICL.
Okay, so the ADA matters because it gives people with disabilities the opportunity to participate in public life. Having a right to point to and an enforceable right makes all the difference. As a queer man, sometimes I can be discriminated against legally depending on where I am. As a disabled person, there's a federal law that protects me.
It's a civil right. And we're told the ADA is the most recent of our civil rights and a part of the progression of civil rights in this country. And yet, when a lot of people think about civil rights, they go back to the 60s. We don't think so much about disability. What's the story with that?
Well, the story is that basically people think of us as broken versions of them. So we're the patients, the ones who have to be pitied and taken care of, so they can't even conceptualize that we're people who have rights. And frankly, we sometimes suck in that ableism and have to, fight against it ourselves. But that really is the fundamental framework that's different about the ADA. It's not a bill that takes care of us and provides services and treats us like beggars. It's a bill that says we have rights just like everyone else.
And it's under threat.
It is under threat. That's the thing, 28 years later, and we're trying to roll it back. It's appalling. The happiness for me is the experience of people with disabilities who for the first time feel their own power. That incredible feeling, that's my happiness.
So I'm here with Vilisa Thompson, who is a member of the board of NICL. Vilisa, I'd love you to introduce yourself.
I'm running up my first year on the board as a member at large, and I'm also the founder and CEO of Ramp Your Voice, which is a blog or organization that centers on the disabled experience from an intersectional lens, particularly the experiences of Black disabled women and femmes. I'm also the creator of the Disability to White hashtag that went viral in 2016. I'm a social worker, writer, activist, and very proud troublemaker.
We like troublemakers on this show. How's the conversation around disability changed as people have become more conscious, and you've been calling them to be more intersectional in their talking.
I think that it allows people to be more transparent when it comes to organizations that are not doing the work that is needed to be inclusive, like truly inclusive of disabled people of color, and not just using us as a checkoff on their diversity and inclusion list, calling them out as needed. I really think that it really forced those important conversations out in the open, like I mentioned, so that, disabled people of color can be more empowered in this space.
And isn't it true that most of us probably are abled or less abled at different times in our lives? It's not such a clear category.
Disability is, it's probably the only identity that you can become a part of at any time of the lifespan. So really making sure that regardless of what your particular focus is, that you understand disability from a more intersectional lens. We're basically talking about the same thing, but just within our different identities. But also there's people within those intersecting identities who are being doubly impacted in some ways. So really forcing that conversation to really tackle the ableism that exists, really getting people to see how what they're saying, the language is outdated. I know words are so hard to unlearn, but they're so necessary to unlearn so that people do not be put off before they even be able to be brought in.
I've been joined by Kelly Buckland, who is the executive director of the organization and has been for 9 years. Tell us a little bit about how you've seen this organization change, Kelly, while you've been here.
My first NECL conference was in 1989, 30 years ago. So 89 was the year before the ADA passed. So we came here for the NECL conference. And while we were here, George Bush was not supporting the Americans with Disabilities Act, so we decided we would march on the White House. So that's what we did. I actually ended up getting a meeting the next morning with the president. And as everyone knows, he came on in support of the ADA later and ended up signing it as president and considers it one of his biggest accomplishments.
What are the things you want to impact? And right now in 2018, we're at an interesting moment. We've not just got the Donald Trump administration, but we have at the non-so-political level massive technological shift sort of just on the horizon, whether we're talking about autonomous vehicles or all sorts of artificial intelligence. Talk about that a little, and maybe Kelly, I'd ask you to kick off. What are the two sides of this coin as you see it?
Well, I think, technology holds all kinds of possibilities for people with disabilities. Let's take autonomous vehicles. So for a blind person to be able to go down to the store, buy a gallon of milk, come back and be able to have it there for their children, that's huge, because you can't do that today. The problem is we're very concerned that we're going to end up with the same thing we've been fighting for decades, and that is the technology will advance, the cars will not be accessible. That's the kind of stuff we really have to start being cognizant of and start addressing from the beginning so that stuff is universally accessible instead of having to go back and try to retrofit the world afterward, after people have been left behind.
I really think that when we talk about these type of cars and we talk about technology in general, there's a huge price tag that many of us cannot afford.
Valissa Thompson, founder and CEO, Ramp Your Voice.
And that leaves us way more behind. You have something and you still cannot access it because you can't afford it. Mm-hmm. Or there's very little resources that are not loans that will allow you to be able to purchase it.
One of the issues that people have talked about is the desire and the right to live independently in community. What does that mean to you?
For me, when I say independence, I'm able to decide what is the best life for myself and to not have anyone dispute that because of ableism or what they perceive me to be able to do.
No, that's exactly right. I mean, that's what independent living is about, is giving people with disabilities the same level of control over their lives that everybody else enjoys. If you're locked away in a nursing home or you're locked away in an institution, you don't get the benefit from any of that. You've been incarcerated for no crime other than the fact you had a disability. So we still have a real fundamental problem in this country where we are taking away people's right to even exist in the community and locking them away.
How would you like to see the larger movement shape up, Valissa? What's your vision of 5 years from now, 10 years from now?
I think it's time to allow the younger people, not just millennials, but also Generation Z, which is on our heels, to really helped shape the tide.
I think that the younger leaders that are starting to take control, they make me feel better about the movement being carried on. I mean, I think I was concerned about that for a number of years, and the young leaders that are coming up are really smart, very organized folks who have a vision for the future.
That was Kelly Buckland, Executive Director of Nickel, and Valissa Thompson, founder and CEO of Ramp Your Voice. You're listening to a special report from the Laura Flanders Show, Ableism Out, Independent Living Now, our coverage of the National Council on Independent Living's 2018 conference.
Well, my name is Sierra Reed. I'm a leader, entrepreneur, activist in the disability community. I am a person that has been bad labeled as a person as crazy, disability, like mental, psychotic. But I learned that that's a part of my life, and speaking up and stumping the stigma about mental illness is something that I learned that I have to stand up and do.
I myself identify a person as a foster child because I was pretty much raised in foster care.
Carlos Ayala, Nickel Youth Scholar.
I got accepted for a scholarship. So the scholarship and the ones that introduced me with the scholarship are called Access Living. That's pretty much how I basically got their help and support of everything of having to get this set up and having me to go to the conference and gain the experience. It was basically all about me having the experience and also meeting with other people who are almost similar to my situation, because I don't really have a physical disability, but I do have mental illness because of what I've been through.
How are we doing as a civil rights community broadly in addressing disability as something that overlaps with other reasons that people are marginalized?
I feel kind of sad and disappointed because in all of it, I thought in all these years, action was already being done, and there's been many times down the road that people are given opportunities to do some changes, and even with myself, but I seem to turn them down because I often think it's just too much, and it seems like, no, there got to be another person that has a better mindset and more knowledge of understanding to step up and being a leader. I can't be myself a leader, so I often think that's already been done, but then I notice that you often notice that there's no leaders, and then that makes you think there's open doors, there's opportunities for you to step in to become one.
You'll both be on the march tomorrow?
Yes.
Are you going to go meet any senators or congresspeople or politicians?
Oh yeah, I wrote a letter to my Congressman John Lewis. Basically, my letter is about employment because once I was diagnosed with my disability, I was discriminated against from my employer. I had a CDL job as an Atlanta school bus driver, and I had a breakdown. I had an episode, and I had to take some time off of work. Got recovered, went back to work, no problem. And I worked all that week, and Thursday I was called into the office, and basically because I did not want to disclose of my disability, they discriminated and fired me. I've never been written up. I never had any issues on this job. Also, I'm a parent, so one of the things I felt like should be addressed is child care. I'm not eligible for child care because of my disability. And so my kids have to pay full rate for school, which is expensive when you're on a set income. And so I apply for, services to help me out with childcare, and I just keep getting denied. And, it's hard trying to be a parent, and definitely a single parent at that.
What would you say the pursuit of happiness is to you? What are you pursuing, Carlos?
My pursuit is obvious. Really don't know how you pursue happiness, but I do try to pursue on waking up every morning to bring in a change to this world of justice.
And what about you?
Right now, my happiness is standing up for what I believe is right. And that brings me a lot of passion and joy. And I'm learning that through this fight, through the disability community, we all are, connected. I just became aware with my disability, the the beginning parts of this year. And I get emotional about it because I never even had the opportunity to talk about my disability, not even with my family. So my independent center was an opportunity for me, a platform for me to, hey, I'm Sierra, I have a disability, and they accepted me with loving arms.
Last comment, and it's your chance really. If there's something you want to say to maybe somebody's like you 10 years ago or 5 years ago or a year ago about getting involved or about maybe they're feeling discouraged about their lives, what would be your message to them?
Well, in all of it, don't give up. I mean, that's the main key, is not giving up and also being patient within yourself. Try to just reach out to people out there, because there is people that been in your scenario that has been even worse than what you've been through.
And just try to live your life with a purpose. Like, stand up for something. Follow the beat, the drum in your heart. Like, if you know it's right, stand up for it. Speak up.
Nothing about us without us.
That was Sierra Reed, entrepreneur and disability activist, and Carlos Ayala, Nichols Youth Scholar. This is the Laura Flanders Show. July 26, 2018 marked the 28th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act, or the ADA. Thousands of disability activists, including many of those who made this civil rights landmark a reality, convened at the National Council on Independent Living's 2018 conference. You can watch the show at our website and see all of our coverage by going to www.lauraflanders.org. This special was funded in part by viewers and listeners like you. We could not do this show without you. There was barely a blip of coverage in the commercial media and no recognition of the ADA's anniversary by the current administration in Washington for the first time since its inception. Please make a donation. Support the show, support independent media. We couldn't do this coverage without you. Go to lauraflanders.org and thank you. Now back to our coverage of the National Council on Independent Living's conference and March on Washington, D.C. Later, we'll hear from the Vice Chair of Nichols Legislative and Advocacy Committee, Dara Baldwin, and more voices from the march. But first, a discussion on some of the injustices people with disabilities face when it comes to the right to parenting.
The question of parental rights for people with disabilities is critically important, and I'm learning a lot that I didn't know about just how dire the situation still is in this country. Next up, Kimberly Tissot from South Carolina, who is one of the leaders of that change. Can you tell us a little bit about your story and how you came to be addressing this question of parental rights in South Carolina?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm the executive director of Able South Carolina, which is a Center for Independent Living, and I'm also a parent of a child. And the fight to become a mother was very difficult. Did some infertility, surrogacy, all kinds of stuff that did not work. And by the time I was ready to really say we need to look at adoption, we went over to our state's child welfare system, and I wanted to pursue adoption, and they told me that I could not pursue adoption because of my disability.
Simple as that.
Simple as that. Simple as that. No, did not look at any other financial backgrounds, anything. It said no right at my appearance. And so they did not know who they were messing with. And so I ended up, advocating, obviously, to adopt. And we did end up adopting, which is great. But as a center director, I kept hearing these stories as well of people either having their children removed because of their disability or not being able to pursue foster care or adoption.
What about giving birth?
Oh, yes. There's a lot of discrimination in the reproductive health system, even being able to get any kind of assisted reproductive assistance as well. A lot of doctors don't understand if you have any type of physical disabilities or intellectual disabilities, any disability, they do not understand how you're going to be able to not only give birth, carry pregnancy, but also deliver. We've seen a lot of situations where parents with a variety of different disabilities, the nurses will walk in after the child is born and immediately call Department of Social Services, and the child is removed at birth.
And sterilization abuse?
Oh yes, that's unfortunately, people think that that's gone away, but it looks differently now. Women are getting hysterectomies very early on the recommendation of their doctors because of not thinking that they can procreate.
And their choices in those areas? We talk about reproductive choice?
No choices a lot of times.
So clearly we need to reset our discussion around reproductive rights and sterilization abuse.
Absolutely.
What did you do in South Carolina?
So we were able to pass the Persons with Disabilities Right to Parent Act, which is a law that prohibits any type of discrimination on the basis of disabilities for parents. It protects their rights when they go to be a foster parent. It protects their rights to adopt, and also protects their birth children as well. So they cannot have their child removed on the basis of disability. Our state used to have a law that said that because you have a disability, any type of disability, you can have your child removed.
So the law that you've passed, does it come with education for people in the institution, in the medical institutions?
Absolutely. So what we're doing a lot of course, we passed a law. That's just a law. We have to do much more work than that. So we're working with our Department of Social Services very closely, help them with creating policies and procedures for working with parents with disabilities and prospective parents with disabilities. We're also working with the medical facilities to educate, working with attorneys, judges a lot of times, because judges have that opinion as well, that parents who have disabilities cannot possibly parent. So we're doing a lot of education across the system. And then also educating people with disabilities. If you want to become a parent, you go do it. Let's make this happen, because that disability should never prevent you from doing anything.
What difference does inclusion make? My father didn't just live in community, he was celebrated by his community. But he was also locked up for 3 years in a nursing home, and he was refused the right by his college to return to finish his studies after he contracted polio in the war. Inclusion, though, means that people are at the table when laws and policies are getting made. And when people with disabilities are invisible and shut out, not only is society poorer culturally, politically, scientifically, but we make a whole lot of bad laws.
We're here, we're loud, disabled and proud. We're here, we're loud.
Hi, I'm Dara Baldwin, and I am the Vice Chair of the Legislative and Advocacy Committee. Well, right now, the disability community is invisible to this administration and to this Congress. On Thursday, July 26th, where we are now, is going to be the 28th anniversary of the ADA. 28 years. And yet this White House, this administration is doing nothing to celebrate that. So what does that tell this community? Yeah, we love the ADA and we love disability rights, but not enough to celebrate you, not enough to honor you, not enough to say you actually exist and we care. That's back to invisibility. Every year we do a march and rally here in Washington, D.C. We have thousands of people who march through the city and letting people know that ADA is the civil right. Disability rights are a civil right, and that their rights are important to the world. So they come to the place where law is done. We march down to the Capitol, and then we have a rally to talk to our elected officials and tell them what we want them to do, thank them if they've done well. There's 3 laws that need to be changed. So let's start with one. The first thing, you need a job, right? Everyone wants a job and wants to be employed. We want competitive, integrated employment, no segregated employment. We want people to use the ADA, Title I, which is employment law. And in that also is equal pay. We have a lot of people around the country fighting for equal pay. Well, people with disabilities are hindered and horrifically discriminated against through a law called 14C, sub-minimum wage, which, yes, sub, you can pay them lower than minimum wage. It's in the Fair Labor Standard Act, which was passed 80 years ago. And until that statute is changed, you can actually pay people with a disability 2 cents an hour. Number 2, in the area of restraint and seclusion, which you cannot restrain and seclude people in any other institutions. We passed a law years ago for jails and prisons. our hospitals and healthcare centers, but guess where you can restrain and seclude people? In our schools, in any educational institution, which is supposed to be the safest place in the world for children, and yet you can restrain and seclude them. So we're trying to end that practice. There is something that's better. It's called positive behavioral intervention systems. Not everyone believes in all of that, but we surely believe that you have to stop tying up children and putting them in seclusion boxes. That is not how a child should be going to school and learning and getting education. So the third one we're really trying to fight is ending electric shock of also students, and that is at the JRC, the Judge Rothenberg Center in Massachusetts, where a judge just ruled that it's okay for that staff to basically zap or shock the students that are in that center. And the United Nations has said this is a form of torture, that you cannot do that. And you can go to ADAPT, ADAPT's website to see the videos of this going on in the centers, and also to see the 15-day vigil that they did in front of the Secretary's house here in Washington, D.C., in the cold and the rain, to say, you must stop torturing our people.
Let's say that when we fight, we win. When we fight, we win. Louder. When we fight, we win. Believe it and do it.
I came here too to thank the disability rights community for fighting to protect the Affordable Care Act.
Representative Jan Schakowsky, Democrat, Illinois 9th District.
Those images of people being pulled out of their wheelchairs, that was what did it. I know that Access Living will be out there fighting, and I'll be right with you, shoulder to shoulder. Thank you.
And every other day, remember that this building behind me is your house. This doesn't belong to Donald Trump. This doesn't belong to special interests. It belongs to you, the American people. And so you don't get pushed around. You don't let them shut you up. You don't let them tell you that what you're fighting for doesn't matter, because it matters. Because you are here, you matter, and I see you, and together we're going to fight for these rights to make sure that they're there forever. Thank you, everyone.
Senator Tammy Duckworth, Junior Senator, Democrat, Illinois.
I, in the military, never thought about disability rights until I became disabled. And then all of the protections of the ADA that all these wonderful people fought for before me were there to welcome me home and give me a full life. And so I'm dedicated to making sure that I fight every single day for disability rights, because we're all, one car accident, one bad medical diagnosis, age. Hopefully we all get to the point where we all have a disability, because we live nice, long, happy lives. But that means that we're going to need these protections, and unfortunately there are efforts to roll them back. This is not about special treatment. This is about equal treatment.
Thank you for having the Laura Flanders Show. Thank you for having me here at Nickel. This has been quite an experience.
Thank you for being here. It's been wonderful to have you here.
So what do we do next?
Next, we're up on the Hill. We're making our voice heard, and we're going to get people to co-sponsor the Disability Integration Act and agree to defend the Americans with Disabilities Act.
And for people at home who might want to begin addressing their own ableism where they are, what do you recommend?
Okay, the first thing you can do is be very helpful to us. Call your member of Congress. Urge them to support the Disability Integration Act, because no disabled American, no one in America should be locked up simply for who they are.
Support the ADA, support the Disability Integration Act, and connect with Nickel, I'd say.
That would be great. Contact a local Center for Independent Living.
You can find out more about Nickel, the local centers for independent living where you live, and about the Laura Flanders Show, and find all of our archives at lauraflanders.org. Thanks for watching.